Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Selena and I am excited that you are here. Welcome to the Unbreakable Spirit, where we tackle difficult topics of immense proportions and we uncover how your internal drive and power allows you to rise above those setbacks. We seek to uplift and offer hope in healing after experiencing adversity. Welcome to our conversation, where there's always a seat at our table for you. Today's podcast is titled In the Midst Surviving a Diagnosis, and we are excited to welcome today's guest, Natalie Walker, who is graciously sharing her story with us about being in the midst. And by the way, the title actually came from Natalie. So Natalie, welcome and thank you so much for joining us at the table.
Thank you for having me, really. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I want to just chat a little bit about who Natalie is. So Natalie is a prolific writer in several spheres, including songwriting, press release articles, poetry, and she's also a noted background singer, as well as a valued promoter and producer for concerts and events. While receiving her bachelor's degrees with honors in music, she actually completed a book of poetry and co-wrote the theme song You and Me for TV show Half and Half. She worked as a background singer, accompanying artists including Mariah Carey. Yes, I did say Mariah Carey, Don Henley, Joey McIntyre, and Jessica Simpson. Natalie's mission is to inspire and to help and to share love in all the work that she does. And it's evident that she does so. I can tell you from firsthand experience. However, on September 26, 2009, at the age of 39, she was diagnosed with an inoperable brain mass that was located across the complete front of her brain. And while doctors cannot tell you what it is, they can tell you what it is not. So Natalie's here with us today, 12 years post-diagnosis, to talk about how she was able to overcome some of her challenges that she was faced with and how she's maneuvering through, and most importantly, how she's able to channel her unbreakable spirit. So Natalie, thank you once again for joining us.
I really appreciate being here.
And let me just ask the most important question that's on everybody's mind right now. How was it working with Mariah Carey?
um, I was a choir member, so I was close to her, but she's very, very nice. She was very kind to me. The things people say about diva, none of that was true. Well, with me.
Yeah.
She was extremely nice. She cared about everybody around her.
That's wonderful.
As far as my
that's your experience of her.
Yes.
Right. Well, you know what? I've actually heard that a lot. I've heard quite a bit that that diva sort of personality that people say is out there is not really what she was like. So I'm happy to hear that your experience of her was not like that. So now why don't we talk a little bit about, what you want to share with our audience. And again, I want to thank you for your heart, and I want to thank you for just wanting to do this. I know that if one person is helped and if one person doesn't feel alone because of listening to us, we've done what we came here to do. So thank you.
Yes.
So you were diagnosed in 2009, and I guess really I want to ask, how did you process this news as it came to you, and what was the hardest thing that you had to tackle?
Well, it was a shock. I woke up having seizures, so first of all, I had no idea that I had it. I didn't have headaches or anything like that, so I didn't have any telltale signs. But I woke up to seizures. They at first they didn't know. They did a lot of tests, and when I did one test, I was home already. And I did the test, and before I could even put my pocketbook down from coming to do the test, the doctors called me and they was like, "Oh, you got to come back in. You have a mass." So I was just like, okay. So I really it didn't really hit me. I just was like, okay, whatever. It was nothing that I knew anything about. So I was just going with the flow. I was scared, but I just kind of knew God had me, and I knew that no matter what, it would be okay.
Yeah. So in the middle of it, your faith, I mean, you just mentioned God, so I'm going to go with that your faith is quite strong.
Yes.
And so in the middle of it, tell me what was probably one of the hardest challenges that you faced. Obviously, the shock of it, not knowing what it was, still not knowing what it is to this day, but thankfully knowing that it's not the big C word, right?
Yes.
But other than that, what would you say was maybe the top one or two things that were the hardest for you to tackle?
Um, I would say one of the things was having my life completely change.
Mm.
From being out, I used to go out. I worked a regular 9 to 5. Well, it wasn't 9 to 5, it was 10 to something. But anyway, so I worked a regular job, and then I would go into the city like just about every night of the week, except for Saturday night. And then Sunday, well, no, I would go Sunday night.
Mm.
But so I was out just about every day of the week.
And that's obviously because of what you did for a living, right? You because
Yeah.
of that sort of entertainment lifestyle. Okay, got it.
Yes, and it wasn't necessarily that I was doing that, but it was I guess networking.
Sure.
But just being around it. So that was really hard just having that stop because I couldn't drive. So that was like, and then I guess in accordance with that, it was just kind of like losing all of my social life.
Yeah.
And then my boyfriend at the time went ghost on me.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, that was kind of hard. So it was just like everything was just cut. So that was emotionally. Physically,
Brutal.
I would say it was just the seizures, that the pain of it,
Mm.
of having them, which I never had a seizure before, so I had no idea how painful it was.
Right. And I have not either. And to be honest with you, as ignorant as this may sound, I've seen what seizures are. I didn't know they were painful. So that's information that I didn't know. So I'm hearing you say that, your independence in one fell swoop was gone. You could no longer go out. You could no longer drive. That's pretty tough for a grown 39-year-old woman to handle. I totally get that. I want to ask just a couple more questions because what I really want to do and what Unbreakable Spirit focuses on is we've got to actually tell your backstory to tell the success of your story, right? So we just want to dig in a little bit deeper here and sort of, what you want to give an example just of what your lowest point was during this time.
Um, Aside my mom passing, I would say
Mm.
I was getting ready to move to LA, and I had a fellowship for UCLA. And I think it was, even though I knew I couldn't go, yeah, I got sick in September and I was supposed to go in June. And I think just knowing that I couldn't go was like, it didn't hit me until I got the letter that said, okay, we expect you this date and this, and giving me information. And then everything just hit me that this is really it. I can't go.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
didn't know when I would be able to go, because with the seizures, I can't really, at that time especially, I couldn't be alone. I
Right.
had to be with someone. So,
Wow.
and
So
definitely not a plus 18.
independence, and your dreams deferred.
Yes.
That's a big deal. That's a big, because you were on the trajectory with everything that was going on to just really sort of go into a different direction. But as we say, God had different plans for
Oh,
you. Tell me
definitely.
about your village for support and tell me what role your faith played in getting you where you are, getting you through or in the midst and where we are today.
My faith is everything. It was there before I needed it. I told you, well, I have a poem that I wrote years before I got sick. But it was there, and the doctors kept saying, like, oh, like the doctors would say to me, don't you feel bad? Like, why could this happen to me? And I was
Mhm.
like, well, why should it not happen to me? It's like,
Mhm.
if I think I could win the lotto, why, can't I think something would happen to me? And like, even like you're going back to singing with Mariah, if I could do that, well, why can't something bad happen to me? These things that, like,
Mm.
around me, most people had never done. And I got to do a lot of things like that, so why shouldn't something? And I knew God was with me, and I knew
Right.
no matter what, he was going to help me.
Right.
So in the midst of it, I would say just every time I would feel bad, I have to say I would waver. It was God. I would waver and I would start crying and whatever, and God would just be there to just soothe me, and he would help me. You asked me about socially. Did I answer everything?
I asked you, well, you know what
Sorry.
I would love you to share with our listeners, Natalie? I would love you to share the story that you've told me personally about what God had told you years before, and you were very like not wanting to do it. So can you share that with our
Sure,
listeners?
sure. Definitely. About 3 years before, well, even before that, but God would always speak to me at night, like 3 a.m. He would
Witching
wake me.
hour, I call that the witching hour.
Yeah, it seemed like every night he would wake me up and I was working and I needed to be asleep. And at that time I was sleeping, but he would wake me up and he would like tell me little tasks or pray for me and like have me pray. Anyway, one night he told me to read the book of Job. Now I have read the Bible cover to cover like a book several times, almost
Mhm.
7 times, which I'm gonna finish now, but almost 7 times. So I knew what the book of Job was. So I said no, and I have this relationship with God that I
And
can.
for our listeners, can you just give the Cole's notes, a one-liner on what the book of Job is, just so they understand?
Yes, Job was a man of God who loved God and he lived upright, but the enemy thought that he would turn against God. So the enemy came to God and said, I bet you if you remove the hedge of protection and you would take all the things away, that he's going to curse you.
Right,
And he did that. The enemy did that. But Job never cursed him. And he
right,
kept saying, I'm not going to curse him. He
right,
lost his family, his stock, all his rich. He lost everything.
right,
And he just wouldn't curse him.
right.
And he proved what God was saying. Because God said, did you check my servant Job? I
Mm-hmm,
bet you if you did, he wouldn't curse me. And he didn't.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So God told me to read the book of Job. And I said,
And you're
no.
like, oh Lord, no, please don't let me read. What do I need to read?
Yeah, exactly. And I
Right,
said, I said to him just point blank, I said, I'm not rich. I don't have any kids. I'm not married. And I was like, you can't do me like Job. No. And it's the book of Job. It doesn't say the book of Natalie. So I was
right,
like,
right,
absolutely not. And
right.
so just every night he's like, read it, read it, read it. So then finally I read it. And all while I was reading it, I was saying no. And I was like, I know you can't do me like this, even though I know the end of the story. I
Right.
know that there comes a point where he stops suffering and God explains things to him and restores him of everything and more. So I know the end of the story, which I'm waiting for the end of my Job story.
And
I didn't get
your
there
story. Amen.
yet.
Amen, Sister Natalie. I hear you on that. Right.
Yeah,
And that's powerful, right? That's powerful. It's powerful that 3 years before this was shown to you. And it's powerful that thank you that you know the end of the story,
yes. Although
right?
while I was in it, like now I'm in it, I still forget. I still
Mm-hmm.
get downhearted and but what happened to me, I didn't tell you, is when I was in the hospital, they had to put me under. This is the first time that I had the seizures. They had to put me under because I was having so many seizures, they couldn't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came to, the first thing my spirit was saying, I felt it in my spirit, was God is complete. So every time a doctor or a nurse or anybody would come in, it was just God is complete. It was like a just God is complete. God is
Mm-hmm.
complete. Everything they'd give me a needle. God is complete. Everything would just come. It was just that was it. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, of course, you lose friends and all of these different changes and stuff. And it was just like God is complete. God is
Mm-hmm.
complete. And I realized that it was more than just my health. And I think that my health really had nothing to do with it, but it was my whole life.
Wow. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what you mean by that?
My whole life changed.
Right.
It completely changed, except that I live in the same house.
Mm.
I have the same family.
Right.
But I lost a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things changed in that sense. But I think emotionally too. Um, I was able to take a step back and see, and I say this to people all the time, especially people who are in any type of position. What happened to me was one of the best things that could happen, because I got sick and I like just dropped out. I wasn't able to really talk to anyone. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to deal with anyone. It was just taking care of myself. So all the people that was around me for what they thought I might be able to influence, like, not even that I could do it, but I could call somebody to call
Your
somebody, right?
connections. Yeah.
That, kind of dropped back. And I would say they got sifted. I was
Yeah.
thinking about this. It was just like
Yes.
sifting. And as the years go, it was sifting. And I was just thinking about it this morning. It's 12 years. And when I used to pray and I used to say, I used to say, God, heal me, but your will be done. And I used to say, I don't want you to heal me until I learn everything I'm supposed to learn. So now 12 years later, now I say, okay, God, show me what I didn't learn. And I think about the lady with the issue of blood. So I'm like,
Right.
all right, we got the 12 years. All right, show me what I didn't learn.
Mm.
So personally, just learning about setting boundaries for myself, seeing how people are, not trying to please people, putting myself first, which I definitely didn't do. So that was, one of the big things. But just my whole life, it's different.
So that's the lesson. That's the blessing in the lesson.
Yes.
That's what that's and you know what? When God moves things out of your life, it's to bring the better things into your
Yes.
life, right?
Yes.
So that's so that's incredible. And that's, again, it's sometimes we got to feel the fire. We've got to feel the fire and nothing. And okay, so we talk about diamonds, we talk about being unbreakable, right? And we talk about these pure things, and the pure things only get pure by going through the fire. They don't just purify themselves by themselves. They have to go through the fire. So that's like huge. What you just
Yes.
shared with is huge. Wow.
In fact, when I wrote the poem, I Found the Faith, which was in 1997 or something like that, I
Mm,
also wrote a poem called I Know What It Feels Like to Be Coal. And
mm.
I was talking about, like, coal is a diamond, but it only becomes a diamond from pressure. And actually, when I wrote it, I don't know what I was writing then, and I'm just thinking about it. I'm gonna have to reread it. But
Yeah.
I was talking about, and that's the name of the poem. I know what it feels like to be coal. And I think
Wow.
I say, give me some time, and I'm gonna be a diamond. And I guess this is my pressure.
You're gonna have to come back on and read that for us. But
I
I want you to read something else. So tell me. So we know what role your faith played in getting you where you are in this moment. Tell me the glory. Tell me when you realized that you were going to be okay.
um I don't know if it was a moment.
Mm,
Well, no, I actually do. It was when I went to my cousin's church, and I still couldn't drive at that point.
mhm,
And he asked me to come and do poetry, and
mhm,
my parents had to drive me. And it's my cousin's church. His church is in Brooklyn, and I brought my book of poetry, and I read a book called I Know, which was a spiritual book. And it's a poem just talking about, I know about God, like I know the things he'll do. And
mhm.
so I was given a brief, as after, before I did it, I told them a little bit of what was happening. So when I finished, it was like, oh, do another one. So I had my book, because of course, I didn't remember anything. So I'm flipping through the book, and I'm talking, and I don't know what I was talking about, but I'm talking. And I went to the first poem, which is the poem you want me to read.
Mhm.
And it's called I Found the Faith.
Right.
And when I looked at it, it was copywritten in 1997. And at first I looked at the date, and I'm like, okay. So then as I was reading it, I was like, but I wasn't going through anything. And I started thinking, and even now I'm thinking about this book, like a lot of stuff in the book, I wasn't going through any of this stuff. They're talking
Mm.
about love. I mean, everything. Nothing. I wasn't going through this. And I know God gave me this book. And so I can't take credit for writing it, because I remember, like, he would like tell me something, and people think you're crazy when you say that, but he would tell me stuff. Even the title, he actually had me get up out of my sleep and sit down and get on my knees and get a pen and paper and write out the title. And it's Insight to See, with the N/SIGHT.
Right.
But I wrote at first Insight, like you would Insight. And he
Right.
was like, no. So
It's got
anyway,
to be wow. So
yeah,
very specific
very.
details. Yes.
Very,
Yes.
very. And when he gave me the title, I asked him, well, what is this? What does this title mean? And I felt like he was saying, it's my sight, that God's given me the sight to give to the world. But
Mhm.
then when I got sick, I realized, no, that was God's sight to give to me, so that
Mhm.
I understood, because I was beating myself up thinking, as Christians, what did I do? That's the
Yeah.
first thing. And I mean, I spent in torment. Like I got asked God to forgive me for everything I could even think of. And
Right.
it was just like, wait, this doesn't really add up. The things I'm asking for forgiveness, like I never killed anybody, stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I was
Mhm.
like, it's not that that's the word. No, that's the worst thing. But,
Mm.
it just didn't add up. And I just couldn't rest. I just felt like it was something, but God kept telling me, no, I told you to read the book of Job. What?
Yeah.
Remember, Job didn't do anything.
Didn't do
And
anything.
he didn't do anything. And
And
he
you know
still was.
what? You know what has been resonating in my I'm actually listening to a book these days, and the thing that's been resonating to me for the last 2 weeks is it's not that God does these things. He allows
Allows.
these things to happen.
Yes.
And that because you then become his testimony, right?
Yes.
So that's what the lesson is, I think. I am like this story, Natalie, we've known each other for just a little about a year or so. And, I hear your story. I've listened to your story. I've talked to you so many times. And every time I hear it, I hear something different out of your story. And I just want to really commend you on just moving through, but really, really importantly, on just being so obedient to your faith. And I want you to let our listeners know after 12 years, where are you now? I mean, where are you now? I know that you spend the majority of your time now interviewing and producing your weekly show on Altis Cablevision, and that's called N apostrophe Sight to See. There
I
you
named it
go.
after my book.
Named it after your book, sharing poetry and interviews. And you have actually been very fortunate to interview people such as Landman Rucker, Carl Thomas, who is the R&B singer, former NFL player and inspirational motivational speaker Trent Shelton, who I know you have a very special relationship with, PJ Morton, Eric Robertson, and Long Island's own Gene Noble. So you are like, this is what your current life is, right? This is in the midst, and you're in the midst, and you're able to do this and bring this wonderful work, these wonderful interviews to people. And so without further ado, I would love for you to recite favorite poem. I found the faith. Are you ready? Do you need a
I'm
moment?
I am, but I would just like to say before I do that, that one of the things, despite like the interviews and everything, um, one of the things that I always wanted to do was, despite what was going on for me, one, I wanted to be there for other people. I never wanted it to be all about me. So when I talk to people and they're going through stuff, I want to listen. I want them to tell me what they're going through. No, don't worry about my world. Tell me what's going through. And I wanted to just exude love. I wanted people to just see God's love. And
You do. I do. We do. I'm sure my listeners can hear it.
I really, that's what I wanted, because it's God. So
It's
I would only be
happening.
here for God.
It's
So,
happening.
I found the faith. This is the poem. I found the faith to laugh instead and praise, to dream of my love and to stroll to a peaceful place. Despite where I am, I'm sure things won't always be. My change is coming, and I know God is there for me. He'll give me peace until his reasons are explained, and God fills my life with mercy until the conditions are changed. I found the faith. I found the faith to trust God and share all of my fears and my doubts, knowing these swords he will tear apart even in the middle of darkness, because God's more than the light. He's also the giver of direction to make sure that everything goes right. I have no need to stress and for a new day yearn, because worries of my tomorrows for me are no longer my concern. I found the faith. I found the faith to surpass my situation and to focus on the glow of my Savior's radiation. Hanging on to hope is a thing for me to do. Having a blind trust in him is what will bring me through. And especially at the times that I'm at my wit's end, it's God's sweet spirit that will come over me with all the love that he sends. I found the faith. I found the faith to know that I am only only truly free when leaning on God is my only dependency. Even if what he told me to you may seem absurd, I've learned to only rely on God's never changing word. Now I can stand still in the midst of life's turmoil because the strength of my Lord's grace will carry me far past this world. I thank God I found the faith.
1990. You know what? I'm listening. My eyes are closed and I'm thinking 1997.
And as I was
Copyrighted.
reading some of the stuff, I was like, Natalie, you got to remember that.
Yes. And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, once we schedule this broadcast, I'm going to be replaying this over and over again because there are days where I need to hear each and every one of those words. I think we all do. And, I know that, there's probably people listening to this podcast that are maybe not Christians. And, whatever your foundation is, this is your foundation. It's your foundation, right? And I feel like the lesson is like, that's what gets you through. That was amazing.
And
Thank
can
you.
I just say the first
You can say a lot of stuff. Go.
with the book with this poem, I started off by saying that Jesus is the author and the finisher of our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I did different scriptures, but I was saying that because saying like I found the faith makes it seem like I'm so strong, but it's not me. It's really God. I can't do anything, and it's him. And even no matter what, if you don't believe in Jesus, whatever you believe in, your foundation is what, and it's not you.
That's right.
It's being.
Yes.
I know some people
Right.
like to say, "Oh, we're God" or whatever, but we're not. We were not. We didn't create ourselves. We were created. And it's that stuff that, if you want to say higher power, that keeps us going. We don't have, if we were God, our lives would be different. Each person,
very different.
Whatever, the world would be different because everybody would be a God making it the perfect world for themselves.
Right.
So,
Right.
But
Natalie, oh my gosh, I love that poem so much. I'm going to listen to it over and over. I almost feel like it should be a mantra waking up in the morning.
yes.
I almost feel like that's like a really great place to like put your foot down and say, okay, let's go. Let's do it. Well, Natalie, thank you. I want to share with our listeners to enjoy more of Natalie's work. She is on Instagram at Insight to See. So that's NSIGHT, the number 2C, on Facebook, N'(sight to see, on YouTube, The Girls Poetic. And I want to remind you that the hosts and participants are not and do not claim to be experts. Content here should not be taken as medical advice, and it is for informational purposes only. If you are experiencing crisis, please refer to the following information. In Canada, the Canadian Health Mental Association, and at cmha.ca, telephone number 416-646-5557. The Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada, which website is braintumor.ca, and the number is 1-800-265-5106. In the US, the Mental Health America, and that's MHANATIONAL.org, 1-800-469-6642. And the American Brain Tumor Association, their website is abta.org, phone number 1-800-886-2282. Thank you again, Natalie. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please feel free to share feedback on any topics that you may wish us to cover. And of course, please like and share, especially to those who you think can benefit from this topic today. Our IG handle is at @Unbreakable Spirit. And we can also be reached by email at therealtus@gmail.com. That's the real T.
Thank you.